just suck it up and go. Well, yeah, sometimes suck it up and go, it doesn't work. And you need somebody to talk to, because if not, you're going to go down a road that you don't want to go down.
All right, guys, welcome back to episode 3. Today we've got a special guest. It's one of the contractors in our community. His name is Chad. We've been working together for how long has it been, Chad? Here, six months? 5 months?
6 months. Yep.
5 months. Yeah.
6 months.
So Chad, 6 months. Yeah. Chad's from, I'll just let him explain exactly where he's from. I don't want to fumble that one. It's a little bit of a tongue twister. No, but I wanted to bring Chad on the call today because he's one of the contractors in our community. He's seen a lot of growth with his business, and I think the conversation will be great for people to get kind of a perspective on what it looks like to work with us. Chad and I have a great relationship together. We talk frequently via text, call. Outside of just our regular calls. So I'm super excited to have you here today, Chad, and talk about your business. So why don't you let us know who you are, where you're from, what you do, and then we'll dive into some questions.
Okay, sounds good. My name is Chad Cranfill, and I own and operate Cranfill Construction. I'm located in the States, Connorsville, Indiana. It's a small community about an hour and a half southeast of Indianapolis, Indiana. I started in about 2005. I do all kinds of home remodeling, room additions. We're getting ready to get into custom building, do all of our design work in-house, and whatever the client wants us to do, that's what we do. So we take care of a little bit of everything.
Nice, Chad. And so you're working on a couple, what do you call them? Barn dominiums? Is that what you call them?
Yeah, barn dominiums. Yep.
Yeah, tell us about those. What are those about?
Okay. Basically, it is a barn style structure, like a pole barn, and they have a living quarters. That's kind of like a new thing that's popped up around here the last, 6-7 years.
And so before joining EBS, can you kind of paint a picture of like what your business looked like?
Very unorganized. I struggled for a long time in trying to figure out how to run this like it's supposed to be ran. Looking back on it now, for a lot of years, I was just busy working, and there wasn't anything set in place to be efficient and to be consistent from job to job. Sometimes in a small community, you just have to grab whatever's there and run with it. And I think that was the biggest struggle was, I'd have a big job and then I'd have several small jobs and then a big job. So I always had work, but just struggling to be consistent and growing.
Right. And how many years have you been in the industry for?
20. This will be my 20th year.
So a long time.
Yeah, a long time.
So it's a long time. And I remember when we first started talking, you were stressing about having a bunch of guys and kind of, making sure that your guys were good with the work that you're doing. And you're trying to handle everything. And you're like, how do I get from one job to the next job to the next job? But I have to be on site because my guys need help. And right. I'm not trying to insult you, but it sounded chaotic.
It did. It was.
I know that nothing's perfect in construction, but it's really hard to grow a business when, you're stuck in the day to day. So, tell us exactly kind of a little bit more about like what that was like.
Oh yeah. I can remember it like it was yesterday, unfortunately. But, so being in a small community, you don't have a lot to choose from. In doing that, just trying to find the caliber of people to do the things and do the quality that you want them to do. That was a struggle. So on the bigger jobs, I would have guys lined up to do the job. And then 2 or 3 days into it, they wouldn't shut up or they wouldn't show up for various reasons. And then I was stuck doing a lot of the work. And, I'd look around and I'd see these guys, they're just going. And it's like, how are they doing this? Because we're in the same town. How are they doing this? And I can't get there. And it was really frustrating. And it was
you were doing it like that for 20 plus years.
Oh yeah. So within the last, basically when I found you, it's like the light bulb went off and you showed me how things needed to be ran. So it basically was something different because everybody that I went to for advice or, hey, how can I do this? Well, you got to work longer, you got to get more jobs, and you just got to keep grinding. And it's like, I can only grind so much. And then plus taking care of a family, there's no way, there's no way I'm going to figure this out. And, here we are.
Here we are. Hell yeah. Well, I mean, I'm proud of you, man. I love seeing the wins that you post up in the community. The other day you posted that you've got your 4th design, and I know the conversations that we first originally had were nothing like that. You had work. It wasn't that you didn't have work. It was that the jobs that you were doing were, kind of like small potatoes, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah.
They sounded like they were messy, all of them. And so tell us kind of what were some of the things that you started implementing when you started working with us.
Okay. So basically, so I've listened to podcasts for the past year, maybe year and a half, and everybody is saying the same thing. You got to have systems in place. You got to have a good team. You have to have all of these things. And I'm still trying to figure out how this is implemented. And when I started with you, it wasn't anything like, well, this is what you do. Good luck. No, this was like, this was like, hey, you need to do this. Before you can go here, you need to do this. I'm like, okay, so this is what I did. And it's like, hey, that's working. Yeah, I know. Let's do the next thing. And the next thing was working. And I'm like, well, hell yeah, let's do this. And the first thing that I implemented was like having an overview of where I was at. It wasn't some big magical thing that happened, because I had to be real and raw and upfront where I was at. So here I'm bottom level, but yeah, you've been running this for 20 years. Yeah, I know. I've been running it the wrong way for 20 years. So this is where you need to start. And we started there.
The first step that we kind of worked through, what I remember, was just kind of building a bit of a starting lineup, because you were doing everything yourself. And because you were doing everything yourself, you weren't actually able to run your business. And so, you're in a small town filled with small little sub communities. And so it's a little bit of a unique beast, because you think that you have to internalize everything, but you actually have to find a way to externalize everything. And so then I think when the shift happened, when you started building relationships with other suppliers and vendors, and you started expanding kind of your workforce, so to speak, then when you start to notice that, hey, I don't need to be the guy doing the drywall anymore. I can sub that out to a drywall company, or I don't necessarily need to be the guy doing the framing. I can sub that out to a framing company. It really started to open up your mind a little bit more to seeing the bigger picture, where it's like, oh, I actually don't need to do anything. I can sub everything out to the right people, and then I can start moving forward. I'm running a business. I'm a CEO of my company. I'm not here, to do a job, which is what you've been doing for the past 2 decades. And there's other levels to this, obviously, like the marketing and stuff, things that we're going through right now to kind of fill that void. But it's probably really hard for you to focus on marketing when you're already busy. Right. Because now you're busy, because now you can actually look at all the jobs that you were getting called on that you were like, no, we're too busy. We can't look at that. I wouldn't even know when we could start doing that job. So I think those, from what I remember about our conversations, when you started building your starting lineup, it was like this aha moment where you're like, oh, okay, I'm not the guy to do everything. There's so many other people to do these things. Who were some of the first relationships that you built from, doing that outreach? Because I know you had connected with lots of different people, and some of them have been pretty impactful on your ability to grow. But through that process, who do you think a couple of them would be that stand out to you?
My drywaller. We were talking about this, and we have worked together in the past. So the good thing about being in a small town is almost everybody, and all the guys on the trades. So he had done several jobs for me in the past. He'd done a great job. And as far as drywall, I mean, I wouldn't recommend anybody else. So I went and talked to him about this. It's like, hey, I'm trying to swing the bat and try something different. I have all of this work, and I'm not going to be able to do that. I know drywall is your specialty, and you're able to do all of these other things. What would you think about coming on and, being on the team? He's like, well, heck yeah, man, whatever we need to do. So that was, I say that was probably the first one. And then my electrician, I talked to him, and he was like, because he's from Richmond, so he's about 30 minutes away. So he's like, man, I've been wanting to get down to Connorsville and, kind of grow my business, because he's a small guy too. All of us are small business. Nobody's this big, big corporation. So he's like, yeah, I've
Yeah.
been trying to find an avenue to go down and do some work in Connorsville. I was like, well, hey, I have a lot of work in Connorsville, and I've been trying to get to Richmond, and based on what you've taught me and how you've explained the community method, that, hey, this could work. And he was the second one. My roofer, he's always done roofs for me, and I was talking to him about it, and he's like, yeah, I'm in it. Well, can you travel here and travel here? It's like, man, that ain't no thing. We'll go wherever you need to go.
Right.
So it's almost like, hey, this is working again, because this was like the first time that I thought outside the box, because this is how you run things, and this is how you do things, and you just wear all the hats and you work yourself to the grave. And it's like, and I remember
whichever guy does ultimately at the end of the day,
right.
Like anybody in construction. I mean, I'm guilty for it too. I did it originally with my company. I worked myself to the grave. And then you realize, oh, you know what? I'm better suited in a different place, in a different position. And like you're well spoken, you're great at sales, you can sell projects. That's why you're busy right now, because you can sell and close on a deal. Getting the job done is just the other part to the business, where it's like, well, I mean, if you don't have a big team of people, or a lot of companies, they think that they have to hire like a bunch of internal people, and they don't really focus on like, where's another company or another subcontractor that can actually do this task that we're talking about doing. And I think now that you've been working with me for 5 months, you've built the starting lineup. Now you're actually able to manage this workflow. What was your biggest financial year on your own in those 20 years?
I would say probably 2012, 2013.
And what were your sales around then?
That year, 2000 was almost 600,000. I mean, that's pretty big for me as far as a small business, and me and a couple of helpers. So, and we were doing everything. That was a busy year.
And so now, where do you think you're trending to finish up the year at?
This year I'm probably going towards 800.
So it'll be your biggest year.
This year will be the biggest year. Yeah.
Cool. So you've never hit $1 million?
No, that's my 3-year goal.
Oh, well, let's do it. Let's try and do it this year. Let's make that the new year. If you're at 800, we can easily cap at $1 million.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, you just keep building your, not that this is turning into a coaching call, but we'll just keep building that list. And your marketing's been improving too. So let's somehow, some way, this is ultimately converted into a bit of a coaching call. I don't know why that just naturally happened, but it's just natural.
Yeah.
Let me throw you another couple of questions here. So what is something that you really enjoy about the community itself?
With it being such a small community, everybody knows everybody. And what I really enjoy about it is when I go to meet new people that, because I've never really advertised. Everything has been referral, word of mouth referral. So when I meet new people that's lived here all their life, oh, well, I didn't know you did that. Well, and that was one of the reasons why I didn't do a lot of marketing, because I was already so busy. And, a lot of the people that I have met over the years, they've become really good friends, and they've referred me. And, I've always tried to give something back to them, whether it's a, $50 fuel card or $100 in cash or whatever, just something to, always try to pay it forward. One thing about it was, when I first started doing this, my dad told me, he's like, you're going to be in people's houses and you're going to be in people's lives. And this is a small town, because he's ran a small business for 30 years. And he was like, if you don't do right by people, rule number one, if you don't do right by people, you might as well just hang it up, because you're not going to get there. And that's what I've tried to do. And I mean, so far it's, we're rocking.
Yeah,
So,
no, it's awesome, man. And you are definitely rocking too. And expanding into the community conversation. So to give you guys some preface, Chad's in our contractor community that's online. It's a virtual community, and so not only is he in his own community, being a part of that, but he's super active inside of our community. He's supporting other people, other contractors. We have contractors from all over the world that are, living a very similar life to Chad right now. They started at one point, they're living at a different point right now. And so, Chad, give us a little bit of insight, or just your opinion or your thoughts about the contractor community that we're in with Elite Builder Society. Can you share a little bit of insight on that?
absolutely, I love it. This is what I've wanted to be a part of for a long time, and I never knew how to get a hold of anybody to start. I even tried to start, something around here, but with everybody's schedule, families, here again, another small community, there just wasn't a lot of time for that. So I just kind of set that aside. And when I came into the community and started, kind of meeting everybody, I've had a couple of Zoom calls with some of the members here, and you're right, they're all like me, and we're nothing special. Okay, this isn't, we're nothing special. We're all trying to make a living, and we're trying to step up to the next level so we can build a better life for our family. And some of the posts that I've posted have been some of my best days, and there's been a couple posts that was, that just really sucked, because it's like, hey guys, today sucked. And I remember the one that I posted not too long ago, the mental win, because even though you have changed how I do business and I'm growing, it's not a cakewalk. I still have the daily struggles. I still have all of these things that everybody deals with. But every time that anybody has posted on there, including you, it's always been positive. Everybody's got your back. Everybody's right there cheering for you. And, I think from being outside the community where we don't interact with each other every day, I think that's a special thing too, because at the end of the day, I could sit there and say and put a post on there like, hey, I hope everybody had a great day today. Hey, I got signed on for another design job, or, hey, this customer, we found out that it wasn't a good fit for us. So we lost, we lost that job, and everybody's like, hey, hang in there. Next one's coming. And I think I appreciate that the most, because I'm a family guy. I'm a big hearted guy. I'm in it 100%. And, that's what really drew me to the community, because everybody's raw and real. And, it's very much appreciated.
Well, I mean, like for anybody that's listening, if you're a contractor and you're going through like a mental day and it's a shitty day, you had maybe a, shitty conversation with your family or with your client or with a subcontractor or with a supplier or vendor, you're typically dealing with those problems alone. You're typically navigating these unfamiliar or uncomfortable situations alone. And my next question is like to you, Chad, has been there recently. You've been there in the past. What does it feel like now when a shitty day comes up? Do you feel like you're alone? Or do you actually feel like you have, somewhere to go and talk to somebody? Because you can't talk to your employees, right? You can't talk to your employees about a lot of this stuff. You can't vent to your wife or your family because you don't want to seem weak, and so you just internalize a lot of this stuff. And all of us, anybody that's listening that's been in construction that doesn't have a coach or a mentor in their life or a community, has been internalizing some kind of problem at some point in their life. And so, what does it feel like now when something comes up? You've mentioned that you can go in the community there and vent and kind of share your situation and get some feedback and get some support. But what does it feel like now versus how did it feel before?
Like I said before, I'm family guy. I'm family oriented. I'm, brotherhood, the relationships, especially with the thing with the guys in this group, because like you said, we all internalize everything. So the first couple of times that I posted, even on the rough stuff, is like, man, I don't know how close to the line I can get. And it's like, dude, just suck it up and go. Well, yeah, sometimes suck it up and go. It doesn't work. And you need somebody to talk to. Because if not, you're going to go down a road that you don't want to go down. And
Yeah.
it was like, you know what, just like the other day when we were texting back and forth, it's like, you know what, screw it, man. I love you, brother. Thanks for everything,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
with the with the community, I feel the reciprocity of that, because, hey
Yeah.
man, how you doing? Hey, I'm doing great. How you know, how's that job going? And it's, you know, it's a good place to be, because you know
Yeah.
that we're all in the same, you know, we're all in the same boat trying to do the same thing, you
Yeah.
know.
Sometimes you just need a little bit of a motivational boost or a little kick in the butt to kind of get you going. You know,
Right.
like we do our
Right.
coaching calls, and not always are they you know, curriculum based or like, you know, whatever based. They're sometimes just real talk, and we just dive into some
Yeah.
real shit, and you know,
Yep.
and to have that check in. I think back to like when I had my construction company, you know, what it would have been like to just have somebody there to just shoot the shit with, you know,
Yeah.
strategically in a way.
Right.
You know,
Right.
what impact that would have made. And you know, obviously your business is going in a completely different direction, so it's got the right impact for you at the end of the day. I'm going to dive into a little bit more here. So looking at the bigger picture with your business now, having this new insight, where do you see your company going now? I'm not going to say that you're retiring tomorrow, but at
Yeah.
some point we need to plan a direction. You know, we have to plan a bit of a direction. And so, you know, 5 months ago, what was the plan? And
All,
currently, what is the plan?
before, you know, I think we think about that, but we're in the middle of everything, like, you know, like I was.
Hmm.
I mean, there's no way,
Yeah. You're not
because,
even
you
planning.
know,
You don't even know.
no, no, I'm
Yeah.
trying to get through the week, you know.
Yeah.
But now it's like, so once you have a plan and have all of these things in place, then you can actually see, based on the data that we've created, that, hey, you know, if we do this, then next year will be this at this point, or 2 years from
Hmm.
now, or whatever that goal is. Well, now it's like, yeah, I will be able to retire one of these days, hopefully sooner than
Yeah.
later, but at least I have a plan. I have these things in place. You know, I'm still working on, I mean, there's a lot of work left to do, but at least it's a direction, you know, and
Yeah.
that's what I never had before. My direction was
Yeah.
just everywhere. So, you
Wherever
know,
wherever the fire was burning.
right. I mean, it was one
Yeah.
dumpster fire after another.
Yeah, no, exactly. So kind of looking back in retrospect, like I know you were a bit you were a bit reserved on joining the community when we first started talking, and you
Hmm.
know, and we chatted a little bit in our conversation and kind of got you to a place where you're like, okay, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump into this. I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna try it out. But there was some walls up. What would you say to somebody? I mean, like explain to me what the walls were, kind of in your mind, and then let's talk about like what you would tell someone that's trying to figure out what to do with their construction company now, and how this might be a good option for them.
When I came across you, you know, of course,
Hmm.
there's all different, you know, hundreds of different coaches, and when I got to look in further, it's like, okay, what's he selling that's different than everybody else? And I think what drew me to you was the genuineness about the discovery call. It's
Hmm.
not like, hey, we got this coaching program. Are you in or out? You know,
Right.
it was almost like, hey, so what are you doing? And, you know, because I've been on a couple of discovery calls with coaches in the past, and I mean, I knew right away that they're not going to be a good fit for me, because they're not, you know, and
Why were they not going to be a good fit?
because they were mostly selling than
Hmm.
listening to where I wanted to be. You know, because I'm
Yeah.
not a $3 million, I'm not a $5 million. So there's no reason to talk to me if I'm not even on that level. So once
Right.
they figured out that, you know, hey, I did $300,000 last year, you know, well, no, you're not it. But
Hmm.
with you, it was a totally different approach. You know, it was kind of like, hey, where are you at? Man, this is where I'm at, you know. And that was the biggest thing of, you know, letting you in on where I was at, because part of it was, I wouldn't say it was ashamed, but it was kind of like, you know, well, you know what happened last year, you know, and
Yeah.
the year that I had. And it was like, hey, this is where I'm at because of this. And this is my last at bat. So I'm going to swing the bat. What can you do? Oh, yeah, sure. So then the conversations that we had before or after that, it got more personal, and it was like, I felt that I could open up and say, hey, just like, what we went through, what I've been through the last few years.
Yeah.
And,
I think every company has the ability of being a $2 million. Like every general contractor, no matter where they are, they have the ability of being a $2 million contractor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. Like when you tell me where you're at financially or where you're at emotionally or physically or mentally, at the end of the day, you were still playing in the game for 20 years.
Right.
You still continue to do the same fucking thing for 20 years.
Yeah.
And then you got to a point where it was just like, okay, cool. Like, now you could implement X, Y, and Z system and already see the growth. So you're already going to hit, your biggest year, which 5 months ago, you're probably going to thought was going to be your last year.
Right.
And so I think I'm glad you took the leap with us. I'm super glad because your results speak for themselves. And it's a pleasure working with you because you're just always a positive guy. You're a family guy, a wholesome guy. It's just always a good conversation for sure. If there was like some type of key takeaway from this whole experience that you could have told, let's say like you were trying to tell your younger self, or even your self from 5 or 6 months ago, what would be something that you would tell them, or try to tell yourself about entering into a space with coaches? Because like you said, there is lots of different coaches out there. There's lots of different programs that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they're disqualifying you just because you didn't make a certain amount of money. I think that's the coolest part is like, if one person isn't making the money, but they've got all of the other tools, isn't that a great like subject to try to help? And for me, I love it. Like, I'm like, okay, cool. Like wherever you're at, like we have people in the community that are doing, $5-10 million. They're in a different business. Right. And that's okay. You're in a different business. But we can help people kind of wherever they're at. So if you were trying to talk to your younger version of yourself or the version of yourself not that long ago, what would you tell them about, joining a community like ours?
I would say, without hesitation, only because of what I know now. It's almost like the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And that's what I'd been doing. So it was like, okay, I've tried everything else and nothing is working. So this isn't going to help or hurt at that point because I didn't know. Now it's like, no, you need to get out of the room, get out of your comfort zone and be in a room where people are so much more experienced and smarter than you are,
Yeah. Well, I think everybody needs to have a coach. I've got a coach. Now you've got a coach. I encourage my kids to get a coach at some point, not just dad. Obviously, everybody needs to have their own coach in their life. And I think that's really what helps push the needle forward. I'm super excited to watch you grow with your business. I love the posts, another new build, that fires me up. And it's not an ego boost or anything like that. It's just a supportive tool to try to share where you're at. So I'm excited to see you grow. I appreciate, everything that we've been able to talk about today. Is there anything else you want to, share with all the listeners that are, this is a new podcast. We're on episode 3, so we'll see how many listeners we actually get. But is there anything you want to, share with, the prospective listeners that we have out there?
I would say, if you're anywhere close to, my situation, when you're running a business that, hey, something needs to change because I can't get there. Well, there's people out there and there's a community out there that is more than happy to say, hey, we have the tools, we have the resources, we have the people in the community that will be here for an encouragement, be here for the good days, the bad days, everything in between, and basically we have a plan. So if you want to get from point A to point B, this is where you need to be.
Love it. And that's great. And could you expand just? But I know we're considering coming to the end here, but one more little thing too, just kind of talking like a little bit about the curriculum, like has a lot of that kind of been a bit of an eye opener because we ultimately run through the curriculum, then run through our coaching calls. Like we talked about the growth that you've experienced over the past 5 months, but like has the curriculum seriously impacted what you're currently doing from day to day?
Yes, absolutely. So even from day one, okay, where are you at? Well, I'm right
Mhm.
here. Okay. Well, this is what you need to do. So let's get your process down on, just a simple process. How do you process a new lead? Well, I don't know. Well, you write it down and this is the process. Okay. So
Mhm.
here's the process. We've changed a few things. Now this is what we do consistently. Okay. Now this is the other thing that you need to do. You need
So you
to,
started implementing systems right off the bat.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Because everything was in my head. I mean,
Right.
I knew how things were supposed to be day to day because I wore all the hats. Well, now, we're starting to have a curriculum ourself or our a system ourself to, this is what we do every day. And, even the guys are like, why didn't we have this before? It's because I didn't know, I didn't know about it,
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, I know you're a busy guy. I know you got a lot of work to do. I appreciate you taking the time this morning to
sure.
have a conversation with us.
Absolutely.
To all the listeners, make sure to go give Chad a follow. Chad, where can people follow you on Instagram?
It would be Cranfill Construction LLC on Instagram.
All right. So yeah, go give Chad a follow and appreciate all your support. If you are interested in taking your construction business to the next level, you've kind of stumbled into the right place. If you're one of our listeners, this is our 3rd episode. So I appreciate your support. Go make sure to give subscribe there and give us some information and feedback on our content. We'll be posting up every week here, and I appreciate everybody that supports us. I appreciate you, Chad. Looking forward to our coaching call. When are we locked in next?
I
Are
think
we
it's
locked in this week?
Friday. Yep.
All right. Hell yeah. All right. So I look forward to our conversation on Friday and appreciate all of you. That's all for today. Tune in to the next one.